Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Eric with American Business Systems, and obviously we got a great special guest this afternoon with Dr. Vicki Rackner. So this is your opportunity to hear from a doctor that had been doing billing in-house, outsourced it through her career. She's going to tell you what she's doing now and how she's encouraging other doctors to outsource their business, and then her affiliation with us here at American Business Systems and how that's going to help you in return get your business up and going, and knowing that we are with you. You're not just out there by yourself. But again, today's webinar is with Dr. Vicki Rackner. And again, the title of it is Why I Outsource My Billing and Why Doctors Should as well. For some of you, you've probably seen me on some past webinars. If you've done any due diligence, you've seen Patrick and me literally hundreds of times doing webinars together. I'm kind of taking a replacement for Patrick this afternoon. But my name is Eric Ogea. I am not only with American Business Systems, but you can also hear us talk about another organization out there called MIRMA. You may have heard already about MIRMA, and we're going to, between Dr. Rackner and I, we're going to talk a little bit about how MIRMA is actually helping you get out there and go market your business. So those are some of the things that we do here at American Business Systems. ABS still has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. So as you're doing your due diligence, go check us out there at the Better Business Bureau of Fort Worth, and you see that we're maintaining our A+ rating. Again, my special guest this afternoon, and yours as well, is Dr. Vicki Rackner, and I'll be bringing her on in just a second, but just to kind of let you know about who she is, where she's done, and her credentials. I mean, she is a doctor. She was a medical doctor and still is a medical doctor. And a fellow of the American College of Surgeons. So she was a general surgeon. She'll tell you a little bit about her story, but she's also an author, co-author. She's been on several different programs. Some of these books may look familiar to you because she's written these books with you in mind, and helping you go out there and market your business. And we'll talk about a few of those books as we kind of go through it. However, I'd like for you, if you're doing serious due diligence, go out there and go get you a book, a copy of the book, The Myth of the Rich Doctor. Part of what you do here is you start your own education. And I would encourage everybody to go out to Amazon. Now, Dr. Rackner didn't ask me to do this, but go out to Amazon, go get you a copy of that book. Because if you're seriously looking in, trying to get into the minds of the doctors, the book that she wrote on, The Myth of the Rich Doctor, will certainly help you kind of get a good understanding of where that doctor's financial health is. So it's a great education book for you as you're doing your due diligence. She's been author. She is recognized in the medical practice management journals. And again, as I mentioned, she's actually on our advisory board with the Medical Revenue Management Association of America. And listen, folks, without any further ado, I'm going to ask Dr. Rackner to join me via the webinar and through the video. So let's get you on there. Dr. Rackner, good to see you, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Good to see you too, Eric. We're talking about one of the things that I get really excited about, which is how to help doctors be more successful. So I appreciate the chance to talk with you and to talk with people who are considering this business opportunity.
Absolutely. So, I mean, some of these folks may have never heard your story. Let's just start right there, and then I'm going to sort of monitor the question box area. So let's just kind of tell us about, your story, where you were, how you ended up outsourcing, and what you're doing with doctors and helping them recognize the importance of outsourcing.
All right, so I describe myself as an accidental surgeon. I was actually in a graduate program when one day I fainted on my way to the bathroom. I had internal bleeding, and by the time that the surgeons got into my belly, about half of my blood volume was in my pelvis. So I thought, this is it. And I was so grateful to wake up that I just knew I was going to be a doctor and save other people's lives like my own had been saved. Not surprisingly, I became a surgeon. Now I'm very old. And back when I was in medical school and did residency, about 80% of doctors, probably a little more, went into private practice. So it was absolutely clear to me that that's what I was going to do. But I had this sense that maybe I wasn't quite ready to run my own business yet. So I joined with a solo surgeon, and he wanted to share call. he had had somebody who worked for him forever and ever. And, I just kind of stepped into that opportunity. Well, I hadn't been in that practice too long when his person who did everything except operate, that's the way she described it, hand, handed in her notice. And well, I'll tell you in a little bit what I really think happened. But we had to find somebody to fill in, and we had to do it quickly. Now, she had done the
Hmm.
billing in-house, and all along I've been asking questions. Well, how exactly do I get paid? Like, how does this work? And I always got sort of a cold response to that question. So anyway, we hired somebody to answer the phone and do the scheduling, and do the general reception work. And then my partner's wife said, how hard can this billing stuff be? I can take a few hours from my tennis game and, pitch in while you guys find somebody else. And it wasn't too long before she just kind of threw up her hands and said, this is too much. Well, instead of my bringing home a check, I had to make an owner investment in the practice to pay the quarterly bills. So I saw the consequences of this cash flow stopping.
Hmm.
So it was a bad situation. The good news was we found a great temp. Everyone loved her. Um, Unfortunately, later on, we got a call from the temp agency saying, look, we're really embarrassed to tell you this, but the temp is actually a convicted Medicare felon. So you
Oh my
might want to
goodness.
look at your billing. And if you
Oh
see
my.
any irregularities, know that this could be a contributing factor. But Eric, by that time, there had been so much irregularities. I mean, who would ever know?
Who would?
But I did,
Right. Right.
yeah. So I did think about her, out in the waiting room, helping the little old ladies fill out their insurance forms, and God only knows what she did with that data. Um, so he kind of got back to a new normal. And not long afterward, I was invited to join a multidisciplinary breast team at the second hospital at which I operated. So I decided I was going to break off and start my own practice. And the first thing that I decided, even before I signed the lease, was I am going to outsource my billing. I never wanted to be in a situation again where I could
Mm.
not depend on the cash flow. Like, I had bills to pay, I had my medical school debt, I had my mortgage,
Right.
and I
Right.
never want to be in that situation again. Is that something you find when you work with doctors, Eric?
You bet. Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, I did things the way every doctor does it. I went and asked my buddies, hey, do you outsource your billing? Do you like your person? And what's this person's name? And when the same name kept on coming up, I thought, well, that's my gal. And so we
Yeah.
did sort of a pro forma interview, but that's who I hired. And looking back over my career, I think that that is the single best decision I made to support my practice growth, because the way that she approached the practice, kind of in a business-like way, really helped me decide where I wanted to put my focus. So I started out, for example, as a general surgeon, but I quickly got all sorts of patients, all sorts of kinds of patients who were referred to me. One were crazy patients, right? My moniker was surgeon to the psychos because I was the only woman surgeon on staff. So I had this reputation of listening to people. And then I
Sure.
got a lot of patients referred for breast cancer. So my outsourced billing person was able to sit down with me and say, look, these crazy patients, this is how much it's costing you to see them. And this is the revenue that you're generating as a breast surgeon. And so I wanted to work smart. So this information really helped me clarify the direction that I went to in the business. So I am just so grateful that I did it. I can tell you that there are an awful lot of doctors who are in financial pain. Now, doctors are smart. You got to be sort of smart to get through medical school, but
Of
doctors
course.
are not good about money. So you as an entrepreneur, you probably know more about how to generate reliable cash flow than most of your doctor clients. So you are in a position to help doctors. Doctors are in financial pain. They need the kinds of help that you offer, but they might not even know what they need. It's sort of like if somebody
Hmm.
had pain down their left arm, they may or may not know that there's a heart attack. And I see, Eric, that you've put up a slide here. Do you
Yes.
want to offer some thoughts here?
Yeah, yeah, I think it was going along right with what you're saying. And as a matter of fact, we've got a comment here, even from the question box area from Lothars, that says now it makes sense of what you personally are doing with helping doctors and why you've written the books that you have. He says, what a tough schooling you had. So it is, you know, and the doctors that we work with and the doctors that we help our licensees get started with, I think you say it very well in some of the things that you do to help some of our licensees is that doctors, they kind of know that they may be just squeaking by. They're maybe in the red. I mean, Dr. Rackner, I spoke to a doctor at the beginning of this year, was talking about having to sometimes get a loan just to make payroll sometimes because their billing was so backed up and they weren't getting paid or something was going on. But yet doctors don't want to actually come out and say and wave this flag or anything and going, hey, I'm really, really bad financially. Can some outsourced billing company help me out here? You know, why don't you talk a little bit towards that in, you know, the pride that doctors have, obviously because they are smart, they don't want to ever come across not looking smart. And so how can you take a little bit of that information and share what you know about it and actually help some of these folks that are looking to get into this to see how they may think about marketing directly to doctors as well?
Okay, well, you asked a whole bunch of things, so let me just
I
sort of take
did.
them one at a time. All right, the
Sure.
first thing is I want to get back to my own story and offer you my opinion about why that office manager quit. I think that she'd actually been embezzling in the practice. And my
Mm,
questions, my curiosity, I think let her know that things were going to get revealed. And so I think
mm,
that she quit before she got caught. So I mean, it's a terrible thing to think about, right? That people would take advantage of doctors, but it is so easy to do. I mean, why are you looking at this doctor opportunity? Well, it's because there's a lot of money in this field. And, you know, you're not the only people who have discovered this. According to the US Department of Labor statistics, 9 out of the 10 top earners in the US call themselves doctor. So if you were going to scam, where would you scam? Doctors,
right.
of course. So I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in dumb doctor deals. You know, I heard about some investment in the surgeon's lounge and sounded good to me. People I was respecting were doing it, so I invested too. That's the way doctors think. They're sort of this group think. And so it is both a problem, but also an opportunity. Because let's say you become an ABS licensee. Can you imagine if somebody like me coming into a new hospital setting is asking around, hey, who do you use for your billing? Do they do a good job? And your name gets passed around.
Right.
That's a great way of growing a practice. The challenge is though, how do you become the go-to guy or go-to gal among targeted groups of doctors? Because the truth is that doctors are very, very hard to reach. And
Right.
so, I mean, I create a whole lot of content. You know, I have a couple of different businesses, but my main business is helping people who help doctors build wealth, acquire doctor clients. Okay, you're not a financial advisor, but your core mission is the same. You are there to help doctors build wealth. So I've spent a decade understanding what the challenges are in getting in front of doctors and creating systems to help people get out there and get their message in front of doctors. And this is hard because doctors are wired than business-minded people. So if you think about what you would want to hear if you were pitching yourself, right? That's not
Right.
what works with doctors. So I just said a whole bunch of stuff here. So let me
Yeah,
just send it back to you and see if you want any clarification
sure.
here.
Well, I tell you what, there are three questions that you think are very important, and I think you've addressed these in somewhat of a way already. You know, what's the doctor's reality? You know, doctors their financial pain, and then the opportunity that's for you as a potential licensee. Now, let me share this with you because again, Dr. Rackner, you and I've worked I don't know how many years together now. We've kind of worked different angles, and obviously we've done webinars together, but we've done webinars specifically for our licensees after folks have become a licensee and helping them get and market to those doctors. But there are some doctor reality, and one of the things that I know you've talked about several times is doctors, physicians burnout, and with that, just the latest thing that has come out with the AMA here in the latter part of January, just last week, January the 28th, another article that's come out of, you know, again, physicians getting to what they call burnout. Why don't you address a little bit about that, and then how outsourcing that their billing can actually help with reducing physician burnout?
All right. So here's the big picture. Half of doctors are behind in retirement planning. Like there's a
Hmm.
whole bunch of doctors in their 40s, 50s, 60s wondering, am I ever going to be able to retire? So it's getting more difficult for doctors to generate revenue because the amount of money that they're getting is, you know, it just keeps on getting smaller and smaller. So doctors need to catch up in their savings, and a lot of them describe this feeling of like being on the hamster wheel. And over the past
Mm-hmm.
couple of years, they've had to go like faster and faster, and they cannot go any faster.
Right.
So many doctors are realizing it's time to think about working smarter. So I just
Hmm.
told you about my billing person coming in with me and saying, look, this is where your revenue is coming from. This is the most profitable way for you to spend your time. So
Right.
doctors need that right now. If doctors are not stepping back, they're just trying to go faster on the hamster wheel, you only have so much energy. And according to a recent study, about 40% of doctors last year reported being burned out. They didn't want to go
Hmm.
into work. They did not, they've
Hmm.
lost their joy. And, you know, doctors work really, really hard to become doctors. I got an undergraduate degree. I did a little graduate school, but you know, that's kind of icing. 4 years of medical school, 5 years of residency. So I was 35 when I finally started earning an income. So I lost all of those years of savings. You know, I was projecting an income that is dropping right now. So doctors have a lot of financial pain. And this pain really is your opportunity. They know it hurts. They might not know that they're victims of theft and fraud. They might not know that their cash flow could be a lot better. They might not know that they don't have to walk away from 30% of their revenue and insurance companies regularly reject about 30% of the claims. Most doctors don't even have a good way of following up on those rejected claims and collecting
Right.
on them.
And
So
I tell you what, I'm glad you. I was going to say, if you don't mind, I'm going to interject here because there's a question that just came in. Is this not part of the office manager's job? And a lot of people think that, gosh, a doctor has an office manager. Aren't they following up on these rejected claims? Aren't they supposed to be doing this? But just as a sense of an overwhelming for the doctor, and they're overwhelmed, their office manager, and obviously a lot of times their office staff is overwhelmed with the work that has to be done. And like you said, nobody's chasing after a claim that someone submitted and they're not getting paid for it.
well, yes, and let me just expand on that. So,
Mm-hmm.
you don't go to office manager school, right? You
Right.
a lot of people who are office managers are like moms coming back into the workforce. Like there's no professional certification for it. So,
Mm-hmm.
you might get lucky, you might get somebody who's really, really skilled, but you might not. And I can tell you that as a physician who ran my own practice, number one concern was patient care. So if there's a
Mm.
question about how you spend your time taking better care of patients or taking better care of the bottom line, my office manager reported to me. I wrote her checks. And so she wanted to
Right.
keep me happy. It was perfectly clear that this was the most important thing. But think about this. Let's say that you had like a really aggressive office manager who was on top of things. And she goes to her doctor and says, doctor, I'm noticing that 30% of your claims are getting rejected. There's this fear of the doctor saying, well, you must not be doing a very good job then. So there's no incentive for an office manager to perform well. I mean, unlike an ABS licensee who gets a fraction of what they collect. So your incentives and the physician's incentives are aligned. Not so for the office manager.
Right. Yeah, I'm telling you, there are so many, as you and I both see it, we see that there's so much opportunity out there for someone who wants to get into this business. And I think you've hit the nail on the head on so many other things there. One of the other aspects I think I'd like to address here, and you and I kind of talked about this because some people may not know that you are actively working with doctors. I'm actively working with doctors. I'm actually working with doctors with some of our licensees here, and I think you and I kind of talked about this right before we got on with the webinar, and that is addressing to those that are looking to kind of get started with us. You kind of asked me, what do you think one of their biggest questions that there may be? And I think let's just address it head on, and that is, how do I get out there and market to these doctors to even begin a conversation? Because if those that have been at this quite some time doing some due diligence, you probably know that part of what you're going to be doing is what's called a practice analysis. You can't just go in there and walk into a doctor's office and tell them, hey, I heard on a webinar that you're not really good at finances. I mean, obviously you're going to have the door closed on you. The second thing, you can't walk in there and say, hey, I'm the new medical billing company in town. Can I do your billing? Let's kind of talk about some of the things that we are doing, Dr. Rackner, to break the door down or, get behind what, like Patrick has said in the past, get past the glass. Some of the things that you and I and ABS are proactively doing, of doing some webinars for our licensees. And let's just kind of dive into that a little bit. I know, again, I've kind of said a lot of that, but I'm just trying to give us some good talking points here of kind of anticipating some of the questions that are coming through this afternoon about, okay, I get the sense of this is a great business, but again, how do I get in front of those doctors?
Okay, so the reality is that everybody is facing the same challenges, right? Everybody has to overcome this high barrier to entry. So who's going to win? The person who's going to win has the skills and tools and knowledge to deal with these factors that keep a lot of people out. And as I said, I mean, this is really what I do. I've developed a system for helping financial advisors get in front of doctor clients. So there is a proven way of doing it. And it's important that you have the right mindset, the right skills, and the right tools. So I think about marketing as the process of just engaging somebody in a conversation. And if you want to do that successfully, you meet somebody where they're at, and then you want to sell. And I think of selling as inspiring people to take action. So Eric's going to show you all about what ABS has. But what I'm also here to tell you is that having the mindset, like understanding how to talk so doctors will listen. I mean, ABS often invites me to deliver webinars so that you get the skills and tools to know how to do it.
You bet. And folks, let me kind of share with you what that is. First of all, I just got some of what Dr. Rackner mentioned is a system. That's one of the things that you're getting here with American Business Systems is a system, a proven track record of what it's going to take for you to get in front of doctors. The other thing that Dr. Rackner, we just started, and this is we kind of just took a little lesson from you because of what you're doing with some of your clients with the financial planners, and that is what you kind of coined the phrase, a done for you webinar. And I think that's so important for folks to kind of get a grasp of what that is. Why don't you kind of tell us how you kind of started that, and then we can kind of blend it in for what we're doing here with some of our licensees and actually helping them break through getting in and having some actual one-on-one meetings with the doctors.
Okay, so I want to again answer this on a number of levels. I have sort of coined the 10 laws of physician engagement that help you predict what kinds of responses that you're going to get. So the first law is that the most influential person in a doctor's life is another doctor. So the financial advisors who are having a hard time getting in front of doctors, I thought, well, how can they use my reputation as a physician and help make it easier? So, I gave them the opportunity to write forewords and afterwords to my book so that they would sort of be in my shadow. And I also knew that while I do a lot of writing, financial advisors don't like writing. So I created these done for you campaigns so that it was kind of like a Jiffy cake mix, add a little water and an egg and mix, and here you go. You're going to get a reliable result. So that is what I have done. I've gotten some great results from that. And I'm so glad that ABS is doing it. But in addition, I want to let you know that yes, there are done for you marketing campaigns, but part of the value proposition of being an ABS licensee is that you will actually have sort of a doctor partner because you are going to have access to marketing materials that I've created. So this allows you to engage doctors sort of peer to peer.
And that's, I'm going to put up this book here. So folks, another book that is out there, again, you can get this on Amazon and get you a copy of it, but it's called The New Thriving Medical Practice. And again, you can see it's written by Dr. Vicki Rackner and Patrick Phillips. And then you had mentioned on your book that you actually have your financial advisors possibly write the foreword to your book, but that's one of the systematic marketing materials that they're getting here with ABS is that they're getting this book and they have the option to utilize the foreword that we've already got for that and just put their name on it, or the opportunity to write it and kind of change it up a little bit, make it a little bit more for them. Obviously, we'll help you and make sure that it's right in line with what's going on with the book. But folks, again, the power of having Dr. Vicki Rackner, through a book, introduce you and your solutions is incredible. And I'm going to go even one step further, because with some licensees, you've actually sent out a letter on their behalf. And again, addressing the enclosed book of the new Thriving Medical Practice as a gift. And again, you talk about marketing done for you, whether it's through the books, whether it's through some of the webinars that we're doing. And again, a more recent book that you've just come out with, again, 10 critical questions for physicians in private practice. I've actually handed out that book myself and gotten great response from doctors. Again, because this book is a little bit simpler book, and it's one that they could probably get through in a break time for them. But the system, the whole system of what ABS has here for our licensees is, again, extremely powerful. And we've seen a lot of success with our licensees get their first doctor by utilizing this marketing campaign.
Right. So, I mean, this is actually a great example about how you get the competitive advantage. So this book could have been 10 reasons to outsource your billing, right? I think, every licensee would love to give away that book, but that would probably not get read because that sounds like advertising copy. These 10 questions, the answer to every one of the questions is you solve it by outsourcing your billing. So, this is done in the spirit of service, right? It doesn't sound self-serving for you to give away this book, but yet it's a doctor basically listing the reasons that other doctors should outsource their billing. And so, Eric, I'm delighted to hear that you've gotten a good response to it.
It is. It's a great little book. It's a great little, and again, it's a simple read. It's certainly not dumbed down, but it's a simple read for a doctor to get it and they go, oh, this is less than 100 pages or right at 100 pages. And it's in a form that it's got big questions there throughout. And so even if you flip through the book, folks, I mean, just getting it in these big headlines of these top 10 critical questions grabs the doctor in there, and then they start reading it, and the next thing they go, oh, wow, this is pretty important. And then you follow up with them. Even the best of all systems, we know, you and I both know this, the best of all systems that are out there, you can get the doctor's attention with these books. You can get on some of the done for you webinars that we're doing to kind of introduce these brand new licensees into these doctors' office. But again, the biggest thing where a lot of people fail is on the follow-up. They finally get to that point where they've got an audience with a doctor or maybe with their office staff somehow, and then there's this almost fear that I've seen, Dr. Rackner, with some folks that they go, oh my gosh, I actually got an audience. Now I don't even know what to do with it. But that's right. Part of the whole system that we have going on, because I'd like to not only talk about this that we're doing with the books and the marketing, but what easier way to get engaged with a doctor's office, what I call areas where the doctors have to address this in their office on a continual basis. And one of the things that's within the entire system is called compliancy guard, and that has to do with HIPAA. And a lot of people, everybody on the call already, probably you're familiar with HIPAA. HIPAA is a real issue. And HIPAA itself alone could put a doctor into a tailspin that they can't get out of. So we've got, again, you and I kind of talked about this earlier. We're in the third series now with our licensees in a planned marketing campaign of done for you webinars. And we're encouraging our licensees to go out there, and the question that they're asking that office manager is, hi, I'm whatever your name may be, and you're with whatever company, and you'd like to speak with their HIPAA compliancy officer. And the feedback that we're getting, Dr. Rackner, is from our licensees is that when they ask that front office staff, hey, I'd like to talk with your office, your compliance officer, a lot of them look at them and go, we don't even know who that is. Tell me, Dr. Rackner, is that a problem?
That's a big problem. So in my book, The 9 Money Mistakes That Doctors Make, one of the big mistakes is not protecting yourself against losses. And so doctors can be sued for medical malpractice, but there are other ways that they can lose money, from fines and penalties related to problems with billing or problems with HIPAA compliance. So I know that you've signed the HIPAA form when you go to the doctor. HIPAA is basically a way of protecting patients' privacy. And when I first started in practice, oh my God, when I think about, we used to talk about like patient stories on elevators. I mean, we had no consciousness about patient privacy. And this is a big deal because if an office is not HIPAA compliant, they could lose tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So let me just tell you a specific story. An office manager went on vacation. Her laptop was stolen, which is always, a bummer. But they were doing a clinical study and she had unsecured patient records on there. That doctor faced a $250,000 fine per unsecured record. So this is huge. No doctor wants to come under scrutiny for either billing practices or HIPAA violations. So this is huge. And we know that, the human nature is to avoid losses. So if you tell doctors they could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, they listen, they want to hear more.
Right. And here's the other thing about it. Again, everybody knows about HIPAA. They know that. We did a webinar last week for this whole thing, and it's kind of still fresh in my mind. But there was one statistic that I put up there on a slide that stated, 69% of patients, current patients today, do not feel as though their current doctor actually is doing all that they can do whenever it comes to HIPAA. So that's nearly, it's almost, let's call it 70%. It's so close to it, 69%. That's a lot of people out there and a lot of patients. And that alone, the other part of that statistic is that will cause a patient to go find another doctor who's more proactive with their HIPAA. And the reason we're kind of talking about that is because, again, that's one of the solutions that can actually get you engaged talking with the office staff. And that's what we want to help you encourage. So then now you're getting engaged of building the biggest thing that you can build with that doctor's office, and that is trust. And I think that's where you being a doctor, automatically, there's already an automatic trust, like you said, peer to peer. But that's peer to peer to you. But me as a licensee, I've got to be able to earn that trust from that doctor. And what better way is that I could help them identify some areas where you could literally go punch holes in their HIPAA documentation and have them discover that and then utilize you to help close those gaps and start beginning to build that trust. There's where, Dr. Rackner, I think we're going to see a huge turn and seeing so many more licensees, especially brand new licensees, go out there and start engaging with doctors, usually within the first 30 days of them becoming a licensee. Because what you just said, I mean, HIPAA is a big thing and lots of money could be lost there.
Right. So Eric, I think that this is brilliant, this done for you webinar. I know that you've got the invitation, you make it easy to invite doctors. So it's absolutely brilliant. But I also want to point out that, as I talk with financial advisors about how to acquire doctors, I talk in terms of 3 buckets of leads. There's family, friends, and fans, people who already know, like, and trust you. There are the power partners, so people who have lists of doctors. And then there are the doctor information seekers. So they're out there looking for information about this or that. So I think one of the most common mistakes that people make is not tapping into family, friends, and fans. So if you become an
Right.
ABS licensee, one of the first things I would advise that you do is going to people who know, like, and trust you and say, you don't know this about me, but I'm really committed to helping doctors in private practice thrive. And if you know any doctors in private practice, I've got this yummy treat that I'm giving away. The yummy treat could be an invitation to the webinar. It could be one of my books that has your name on it. And by the way, you haven't lived until you see what it's like to have your name on the front cover of a book. It's completely awesome. But essentially what you can do is strategically add links in the chain of trust, because building trust de
Yes.
novo just from thin air, it's tough. It's tough. So
Yes.
but there are all sorts of ways that you can do this in a smart way, to get in front of doctors.
You bet. You bet. And with your help of what you've been able to do and help us with new ideas and these done for you marketing campaigns and morphing that into some webinars that we're doing and some of the other creative things that we're obviously coming up with. I know that one of the things, Patrick, I get to talk with him about him right now because he's not here, is that he is so passionate for licensees and new licensees be successful as quickly as they can. And engaging with you, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago, and asking you to come and, would you join us with what we're doing, has been great.
Well, it's been a real honor. And if you're on this call, you might be betting other opportunities, right? Because you want to make your dreams come true through entrepreneurship, and I really honor you for that. But as you're looking at business opportunities, one of the things to think a lot about is, what is the character of the community with whom you will be associating? And over time, Patrick and Eric and all of the ABS staff have shown me through their actions that they are people of integrity. Now, I don't get anything by saying these things, but as you're looking at opportunities, just know that there are sort of fly-by-night people out there. People will tell you things to make a sale. But the thing I continue to be impressed with ABS is that Patrick and the whole team, they're constantly looking at ways of being successful, because things that worked 5 years ago, they don't always work today. And
Right.
so he is continually going out there. And I think that this speaks to his character, and it speaks to the character of the association.
You bet. Yeah, couldn't put it better. Thank you so much for saying that about Patrick and ABS. And it's one thing to be in a business opportunity like we are in. It would be something if we were just getting started. But folks, again, for you doing your due diligence, this is 25 years plus of being in this field. And Patrick and his wife Linda started doing billing themselves, and so this is something that. This is all that they've ever known and all that we've ever known. And again, I like to look at it this way, Dr. Rackner, because you mentioned earlier in your story that what drove you to become a surgeon is what other surgeons did for you. And I'm like that too. One of the things that we do personally, just talking personally, we have been my in-laws caretakers for going on 15 years now. And what drives me to help doctors is what I do with my in-laws, because if I've got to take them to their specialist, I want that specialist to take care of my in-laws as best as they can. If I know that doctor has preoccupation thinking wise because they don't know whether they're going to make payroll or not, reduces the care that they actually can give to my loved one. So the reason I'm in this business is for physicians like you and others that want to remain independent. And I want to make sure that you don't have to worry about getting paid yourself and then paying your staff, because I need something from you. I need for you to take care of my aging parents and my in-laws. And not only that, I kind of heard it last night. I'm in that sandwich world where I've got taking care of the elderly, but then I'm also taking care of and making sure that my children and my grandchildren need taken care of as well. So I look at what we do so much broader than just trying to see if I can make a business opportunity out of medical billing. I really do see it as helping my neighbor help my neighbor.
So the people who tend to be most successful in the medical market are people who enter with a spirit of service. So people
Mm-hmm.
like to work with people who are like them. And doctors are drawn to a spirit of service. And Eric, here's a little tip for you. All of your
I'll take
doctors
it.
who are treating other people, you can write them a thank you note inside of a book that has your name on it. And just let them know in the spirit of service, I so appreciate your gifts. Here's how you're making a difference in our lives. And I'm similarly committed to serving the doctors who serve the community. And so
That's
you're
a
not
great idea.
prospecting, you're treating physicians, but you are just expressing gratitude and saying, look, I want to give back to the people who are making a difference in our lives. The treating doctor might not become your client. They probably won't be because of these rigid boundaries around the doctor-patient relationship, but they could share the book with somebody else who could go on
You're
and
right.
become your client. So you want to, you want to be associated with an organization who will give you like these little tips, these little pearls of wisdom to help you be successful.
You bet. I mean, we know when we do our Wednesday webinars, this is kind of targeted for folks that are looking to get into this business. But folks, if you haven't picked up some, like she said, some nugget already that literally could be used in any other type of service industry that you might be looking at as a business opportunity, it certainly has its findings of, those golden nuggets here with this. And so many times we've heard so many people that have actually become a licensee says, I think I gained so much knowledge, so much education by just attending the Wednesday webinars, because obviously I didn't really know the depth of medical billing. I knew that was probably a pretty good business opportunity to get into, but again, just the key little nuggets that you find out here through just attending a free Wednesday webinar, listening to Dr. Rackner, listening to other licensees that have been out there, or folks, I know there is a question here about, how can I get prepared financially to even invest in this type of business opportunity? And next Wednesday, Patrick and I are going to be going through those very questions of what you need to do to kind of get things prepared and what your due diligence looks like and how to get your finances in order to kind of get to where you need to be. And so we're going to be handling all of that next week. Before I let you go here, I was just going to say, if there's the audience here that's on the webinar, now's again to kind of get your last minute questions here. But as we kind of wrap up here, Dr. Rackner, what would you say is some of the next steps that those that are attending the webinar this afternoon could take proactively?
I think that looking in your heart to see if this calls to you, maybe you've had a doctor who's made a big difference in your life. Maybe you've had a doctor who's a family member or a doctor who's a neighbor, and you saw something that happened. You will know in your heart whether or not this is right for you. But from a business objective, I would recommend that, especially if you're looking at other opportunities, you ask yourself some questions so you remove emotion. Is there a business opportunity here? Think about all of the businesses that have gone out of businesses. Schwinn Bicycle, I mean, who would have imagined, right?
Right.
And so the industry that you're going into, is it something that's going to be outsourced? Is it something that's going to be obsolete? And as we look at how our economy is building, one of the major growth industries is healthcare. And so this is a growing industry. And by the way, you might be wondering, well, wouldn't somebody just outsource billing? And there are HIPAA related issues that make that a not good choice. Okay, so second question
Right.
is, what is the opportunity for profitability and getting a return on that investment? And let me just point out that as an ABS licensee, you are going to be collecting some percentage of the billing. Now, if you look, and this is public knowledge, you can take a look at physicians' incomes. So the average orthopedic surgeon starts out at an income of about $500,000, which means that they're collecting a lot more than $500,000 because they've got expenses to be able to take that home. You know, would you like a percentage of $700,000? I think the answer to that is yes. So there is a huge opportunity. And third, is there a path to get there? I mean, is there a track record of success? Is this just theoretical, or are there real people having real success stories? And, you know, ABS checks all of those marks, but if you're looking at other opportunities, you might want to gain clarity about the answers to those three questions.
You bet. That's awesome. Dr. Rackner, I'm going to kind of do some wrap up here, and I appreciate you taking your afternoon out this afternoon of answering some of these questions. I think we've answered all the questions that we can answer so far. But thank you so much for joining this afternoon. I'm just going to kind of do the wrap up stuff here that I need to do for what they need to kind of do if they're going to take some next steps, and what we're going to do for the webinar for next week. So thank you so much, ma'am.
All right. My pleasure speaking with you, Eric, and thank you for being on the line and exploring this opportunity. Doctors need you, and you're going to do well by doing good. Bye-bye.
You bet. Thanks so much. All right, I'm going to put this up here, folks, because again, as you're kind of looking at the opportunity, let me kind of just take the last few minutes here while we have you this afternoon and kind of talk with you about why we're different than anybody else. Again, I feel like we, obviously, being a little biased here, you know, we feel like we blow out the competition. There are other medical billing possibilities out there that you could look at. You could go buy your own stuff. You could go start your own. You don't really need anything. But again, you're going to go out there and reinvent the wheel. We've talked about that, and that could be very costly, very timely in doing that. But truly, we have technology and medical technology of getting claims processed in a way that really just smokes everybody else out there. So let me say this and encourage you. If you're doing your due diligence, what I'd like for you to do is get back with the person that actually asked you to come to the webinar today and schedule a live demonstration of the software. If you haven't done that, you're shortchanging yourself in understanding why this opportunity, and through the system that we have, why this gives you the advantage out there in the marketplace. So if you haven't had an opportunity, get back with the person that had asked you to come to the webinar and schedule a live demonstration of the iClaim and the EMRX platform. That will kind of help gel everything that you hear on these webinars, because again, you're one-on-one with us, and we'd be happy to kind of take you on that tour and answer the questions that you have, because that, along with the rest of the system that we have here, whether it's the HIPAA, the compliancy part of it, whether it's the coding aspect of it. I know that we didn't get to a lot of questions about coding, and a lot of people want to know, do I need to go to school for coding? You don't need that, because that's part of one of the systems that we actually have built into our system, that if you need coding, that's there as well. So there's a lot of different aspects of the business. If you haven't taken the advantage, again, of seeing a webinar, seeing how a claim can kind of start with the patient, as you can see here on this one screen that I have here, that dumps directly into the doctor's EMR system, which is EMRX. That goes to the billing system, which again has its own built-in clearinghouse. That again, you can see it goes from there directly to the insurance companies, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, any of the commercial insurances out there. It directly goes to there, and then it gets the doctor paid quicker. We're talking less than 7 to 10 days in many cases getting that doctor paid. So you talk about wanting an advantage out there, you need to have these advantages. And again, I can't express enough, and I could probably take up another hour of, again, the marketing techniques of what we're doing to help you once you become a licensee, once you've completed this online training that we now have, that you can get started literally next week with your training. And then be a part of these done for you webinars that we've got our next one scheduled the first part of March. So imagine that you could start next week with your training, and while you're going through training, begin these marketing campaigns, start getting some things going. By the end of your training, you already have 1 or 2 doctors that you've got some leads on already, and then get prepared for that March. I think it's the first or second week of March that we're doing this done for you webinar on HIPAA compliancy and how they can become successful. So this is the time for us to help you get out of the gates as quickly as possible. So if you got any questions about that, again, get back with the person that, again, invited you to the webinar today. And then, and let me also share this with you. And this is one of the things that Patrick and us at ABS pride ourselves on. And that is a 100% money back guarantee. So once you've made that decision and you put your money, you put the money, kind of, as they say, kind of bellied up to the bar there, and you've got this thing going, and you go through that week of training or however long it's going to take you to get through the online training part of it, you still have an opportunity to get your money back. Again, you learn all of the trade secrets. You learn everything that we're going to do for you. You actively start doing some marketing. And even at the end of your training, if you feel like this is still not the business for you, you simply get back with the person that you've been working with and just say, look, it may not work out for me or whatever it may be. And we part as friends. I mean, what a lot of people say, really, what do you have to lose except for the opportunity, again, to make it real for you, for your family, for your future. And folks, again, this is not anything more than just trying to get you positioned where you need to be for your own financial security. Now, here are some of the things that you need to be doing as some next steps. We have a research guide that's downloadable that you can get to that. We've got our YouTube channel. If you haven't been out there, just go look. There are literally hundreds of videos that we've done. We're going to do one next week that I'm going to share with you here in just a minute about. But the one that we've done today is recorded. So if you want to go back and watch it, obviously you can go back and watch it a little bit later. Then ask for references. Talk with some other of the other ABS licensees. Get that owner reference list and start talking to us. And again, you can see here about doing a live demonstration and then finishing out with the purchase agreement, the funding instructions that we can get you, and then get started on your live training. The person that does our live training, again, she's a licensee. She knows what it means to go out there and go build your business. And so again, what do you have to lose except just not knowing whether this is going to work for you or not? So again, if you would like to schedule a demo or get that research guide, give us a call here at 866-565-8413.